I walked into that courthouse holding my son's tablet like it was made of glass. My ex-husband sat 3 rows ahead with his attorney, the same smug posture he'd had for 18 months of custody negotiations. His new girlfriend wasn't there. Smart choice. My hands weren't shaking. I had played that recording 47 times in my car over the last 6 weeks. I knew every breath, every pause, every word. The judge called us forward. My attorney pressed her hand on my shoulder. I set the tablet on the table, opened the file, and pressed play. The courtroom went silent except for my ex-husband's voice saying your child is a mistake I regret. The judge's pen stopped moving. Security escorted him out 12 minutes later. Some people in my family still think I went too far. I need you to tell me. The hearing room had fluorescent lights that made everyone look tired. My son was with my mother that morning. He didn't know I was bringing the recording. He had handed me the tablet 6 weeks earlier without saying a word, just opened the folder and walked away. I sat on his bed for an hour listening to 6 months of audio files, dinner conversations, weekends, pick-up and drop-off exchanges. My ex-husband telling his girlfriend that my son was a mistake, that he wished he had never stayed, that the child support was bleeding him dry even though he made $400,000 a year and paid $1,800 a month. My son had hidden in his closet with his tablet every time his father came to pick him up. 8 years old, recording evidence because some part of him knew no one would believe him if he just said it out loud. I sat in the courtroom that morning with my spine straight. My attorney had tried to prepare me for the possibility that the judge wouldn't allow the recording, unauthorized recording of a private conversation. My son was a child. The legality was murky, but I had nothing else. 18 months of my ex-husband fighting for 50-50 custody while telling his girlfriend in private that our son was a regret. The judge looked at me. I looked back. I pressed play. Let me tell you how we got here. My family never expected me to amount to much. I was the younger daughter. My sister Caroline married a surgeon when she was 26. My mother introduced her at every gathering as Caroline, who married extremely well. I was 28 and single. I worked in commercial real estate. My mother told people I was still figuring things out. At Thanksgiving dinners, my uncle asked me if I had met anyone yet. My aunt suggested I try teaching because it was more realistic for someone like me. I smiled. I refilled their wine glasses. I had closed a property deal the week before that netted me $63,000 in commission. I didn't tell them. There was no point. They had already decided who I was. I met my ex-husband at a networking event. He was in finance, confident. Made good money. My mother was thrilled when we got engaged. Finally, she said, finally you are settling down with someone stable. We married in June. My son was born 2 years later. My ex-husband had wanted children. He had talked about legacy and family. He had held our son in the hospital and cried. I thought we were happy. We were not happy. He resented the sleep deprivation. He resented the shift in my attention. He resented that I went back to work 4 months after giving birth because I had clients who were waiting for me. He wanted me home. I told him I was building something. He told me I was being selfish. We divorced when my son was 6. My ex-husband fought for full custody at first, then he dropped it to 50-50. Then he started missing his weekends. I didn't push. I documented everything, missed pickups, late drop-offs. The times he returned our son without the homework folder. My attorney said to keep records. I kept records. My ex-husband married his girlfriend 8 months after the divorce was finalized. My mother said I should be happy for him, that he had moved on, that I should try to do the same. I was happy. I was working. I had my son. I had just signed my largest contract to date managing a commercial lease portfolio worth $8.3 million. I didn't tell my mother. She wouldn't have understood the numbers anyway. My sister hosted Christmas that year. She had a house in the suburbs with a 3-car garage and professionally decorated interiors. My mother spent the first 30 minutes complimenting the crown molding. Caroline asked me how work was going. I said it was fine. She said she was glad I had something to keep me busy now that I was alone. My brother-in-law offered to introduce me to a colleague who was recently divorced. A nice guy, he said. Stable income. I thanked him. I did not need an introduction. I had a portfolio worth more than his annual salary. But I smiled. I ate the catered dinner. I watched my son play with his cousins. I left early and called my attorney from the car. My ex-husband started fighting for more custody time that spring. 50-50 wasn't enough anymore. He wanted primary custody. He said I worked too much, that our son needed stability, that his new wife could provide a better home environment. I hired a better attorney. Patricia Reyes. She cost $500 an hour and was worth every cent. She told me to stay calm, to let him make his case, to document everything he said and did. I documented everything. I went to every custody evaluation meeting. I provided school records, medical records, activity schedules. I showed up to every single event in my son's life. My ex-husband missed 3 soccer games in 2 months. Patricia noted each one. The custody hearing was set for September. My ex-husband's attorney filed a motion claiming I was alienating our son from his father, that I spoke negatively about him in front of the child, that I discouraged their relationship. It wasn't true. I had never said a single negative word about my ex-husband in front of my son. I didn't need to. My son had his own opinions, but I couldn't prove I hadn't said something. My ex-husband's attorney was building a narrative, the angry ex-wife, the controlling mother. Patricia told me to stay calm. We would handle it. I stayed calm. I went to work. I closed deals. I signed contracts. My family kept asking if I was okay. I was fine. I was better than fine, but I didn't tell them that either. My son came home from a weekend with his father in July. He was quiet. He went to his room and closed the door. I gave him space. I made dinner. He didn't come out. I knocked. He said he wasn't hungry. I asked if something had happened. He said no. I believed him because I wanted to. He was 8 years old and he had learned that some things were easier to handle alone. I understood that. I had learned the same thing at his age. I left a plate outside his door and went to finish work emails. I had 3 property showings scheduled for the next day and a contract revision due by midnight. I didn't push him. I should have pushed him. He handed me the tablet 6 weeks before the custody hearing. I was folding laundry in the living room. He walked up with the tablet in both hands and opened a folder labeled Dad's House. There were 83 audio files. The oldest was dated 6 months earlier. I looked at him. He looked at the floor. I asked him what this was. He said he thought I should hear it. Then he went back to his room. I sat on the couch and pressed play on the first file. My ex-husband and his new wife were talking about dinner plans, normal conversation. I skipped ahead. The 4th file was my ex-husband talking about child support, saying it was highway robbery, saying he was paying for a kid he barely saw. I kept listening. The files got worse. By file 23, my ex-husband was telling his wife that our son had been a mistake, that if he could go back, he wouldn't have had children, that he stayed in the marriage longer than he should have because he thought it was the right thing to do, but he regretted it. I sat on that couch until 2 in the morning. I listened to every single file. My son had recorded everything, every visit, every pickup, every dinner conversation. He had been gathering evidence because somewhere in his 8-year-old mind, he knew that someone needed to hear what his father said when no one was listening. I called Patricia the next morning. I told her what I had. She was quiet for a long time. Then she asked if I had my son's permission to use it. I said he gave me the tablet. She said that wasn't the same thing. She said we needed to be very careful. That unauthorized recording was a legal gray area, that a judge might not allow it. I said I understood. I asked her what our options were. She said she would research it and call me back. I went to work. I showed a property to a potential client. I smiled. I answered questions. I closed the deal. I went home and listened to the files again. I needed to be sure. I needed to know that I wasn't hearing things that weren't there. I wasn't. My ex-husband had said every word. He had said our son was a mistake. He had said it more than once. Patricia called me back 3 days later. She said the recording was admissible if I could argue it was relevant to the custody determination, that my son's well-being was directly impacted by his father's statements, that a judge had discretion to allow evidence that spoke to parental fitness. She said it was risky, that my ex-husband's attorney would fight it, that there was a chance the judge would exclude it and we would have shown our hand for nothing. I asked her what she would do. She said she would take the risk. I told her to prepare the motion. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell anyone. I went to my son's soccer game that weekend. I cheered. I brought snacks. I talked to the other parents about carpool schedules. My ex-husband didn't show up. I noted the date and time. Patricia had told me to keep documenting. I kept documenting. My mother called me a week before the hearing. She wanted to know if I was nervous. I said I was fine. She said Caroline had offered to come to the courthouse with me for moral support. I thanked her and said my attorney would be there. My mother said it would be good to have family. I said I appreciated it, but I would be fine. She sighed. She said I had always been so independent. That sometimes I made things harder than they needed to be. That if I had just been a little more flexible with my ex-husband, maybe we could have avoided all of this. I told her I had to go. I had a client meeting. I didn't have a client meeting. I sat in my car in the driveway and breathed. Then I called Patricia and asked her if we were ready. She said we were as ready as we would ever be. I said good, I meant it. If you have ever been counted out by someone who should have known better, you already know what that silence feels like. You smile, you nod, you let them think they are right. And then you build something they will never see coming. The hearing was scheduled for 9 in the morning. I wore a gray suit, professional, understated. My attorney had told me to look calm and competent. I looked calm and competent. My ex-husband wore a navy suit and sat with his attorney at the table across from us. He didn't look at me, he looked at his phone. His attorney shuffled papers. The judge walked in. We stood. The bailiff announced the case. We sat. My ex-husband's attorney went first. He argued that I was uncooperative, that I had refused reasonable requests for schedule changes, that I had prioritized my career over my son's relationship with his father. He presented a timeline of missed communications. Text messages I hadn't responded to within an hour. Emails that took me 2 days to answer. He made it sound like I was obstructing access. I wasn't obstructing access. I was working. I was raising our son. I was doing everything while my ex-husband showed up when it was convenient. Patricia took notes. She didn't react. The attorney spoke for 23 minutes. Then he sat down. Patricia stood. She approached the bench. She said we had evidence that spoke directly to parental fitness and the child's best interest. She said it was audio evidence recorded by the child himself. My ex-husband's attorney objected immediately. He said unauthorized recording. He said invasion of privacy. He said the child was 8 years old and couldn't have understood what he was doing. The judge held up her hand. She asked Patricia to explain. Patricia explained that my son had recorded conversations in his father's home over a 6-month period, that the content of those recordings was directly relevant to his emotional well-being and his father's fitness as a custodial parent. The judge asked if I had instructed my son to record. Patricia said no. The judge asked if my son knew I was presenting the recordings today. Patricia said yes. The judge was quiet for a moment. Then she said she would allow it. She would listen to a sample. If it was relevant, it would stay. If not, it would be excluded and we would move on. My ex-husband's attorney objected again. The judge overruled him. She looked at me. She told me to proceed. I picked up the tablet. I had marked 3 files, the clearest 3. The ones where my ex-husband's voice was unmistakable and the words were unambiguous. I opened the first file. I set the tablet on the table. I turned up the volume. I pressed play. The courtroom was silent except for my ex-husband's voice. He was talking to his wife. He said our son had been a mistake. That he regretted staying in the marriage as long as he did. That he wished he could go back and make different choices. The recording was 41 seconds long. I stopped it. The judge's face had changed. She looked at my ex-husband. He was staring at the table. His attorney was whispering to him. The judge asked if there was more. I said yes. She told me to play it. I played the second file. My ex-husband saying the child support was a waste of money. That he was paying for a kid who didn't even want to spend time with him. That if I wanted full custody so badly, I should take it and stop asking him for money. I stopped the recording. The judge asked my ex-husband if he had anything to say. He said the recordings were taken out of context, that he had been venting, that everyone said things they didn't mean in private. The judge asked him if he regretted having his son. He didn't answer. His attorney answered for him. He said his client's private conversations were not indicative of his parental commitment. The judge looked at me. She asked if there was more. I said yes. She told me to play it. I played the third file. My ex-husband and his wife were arguing. She was saying he needed to spend more time with his son. He said he didn't want to, that the kid reminded him of me. That every time he looked at him, he saw the worst years of his life. That he was doing this custody fight because his attorney said it would reduce his child support obligation. Not because he wanted more time, because it would save him money. The recording was 1 minute and 18 seconds. I let it play all the way through. When it ended, the courtroom was completely silent. The judge set down her pen. She looked at my ex-husband for a long time. Then she looked at his attorney. She said the custody order was being modified immediately. She said my ex-husband would have supervised visitation only. She said he would undergo a psychological evaluation before any visitation schedule was reconsidered. She said the child support would remain unchanged. She said if my ex-husband wanted to appeal, he was welcome to do so, but she was entering the order today and it was effective immediately. My ex-husband stood up. He started to say something. The judge told him to sit down. He didn't sit down. He raised his voice. He said this was ridiculous, that I had coached my son, that the recordings were illegal. The judge told the bailiff to escort him out. Security walked him out of the courtroom. His attorney followed. The judge looked at me. She asked if my son was safe. I said yes. She said good. She said she would be ordering a child welfare check just to be sure. I said I understood. She closed the file. She told me I was free to go. Patricia and I walked out of the courthouse into the parking lot. I sat in my car. I didn't cry. I called my son. I told him it was over. He asked if he had to go back to his dad's house. I said not for a long time. He said okay. Then he asked what was for dinner. I told him whatever he wanted. I didn't tell my family about the hearing outcome. My mother called that evening asking how it went. I told her it went fine. She asked what that meant. I said the judge made a decision and we were moving forward. She wanted details. I said I was tired and would talk to her later. She sighed the way she always did when I wouldn't give her what she wanted. I let her sigh. I hung up. My son and I ordered pizza and watched a movie. He fell asleep on the couch. I carried him to bed. He was getting heavy, 8 years old and already too big to carry easily. I stood in his doorway for a while watching him sleep. He looked peaceful. He hadn't looked peaceful in months. I went back to work the next day. I had a client meeting at 10. Property walkthrough at noon. Contract review at 3. My assistant asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. She said I seemed different. I told her I had a good day yesterday. She smiled and went back to her desk. I closed my office door and called Patricia. She said the formal order would be filed by end of week, that my ex-husband's attorney had already filed an appeal motion, but it would take months to process and wouldn't change the immediate custody arrangement. I thanked her. She asked how I was holding up. I said I was fine. She laughed. She said I always said I was fine. I told her that was because I usually was. She said she believed me. We hung up. My sister called 3 days later. She wanted to have lunch. I said I was busy. She said she had heard about the custody hearing from Mom. I asked what Mom had told her. She said not much, just that there had been some kind of recording, that my ex-husband was upset. I told Caroline the judge had modified the custody arrangement. She asked if that was really necessary. I asked what she meant. She said my ex-husband was still my son's father, that whatever had happened between us, I shouldn't try to cut him out of his child's life. I was quiet for a moment. Then I told her I had a meeting and had to go. She said we should talk about this. I said there was nothing to talk about. The judge had made her decision based on the evidence. Caroline said she was just trying to help. I told her I didn't need help. I hung up. I had been building something for 3 years, not the career. The career had been built long before the divorce. I had my real estate license at 24. I spent 5 years learning the commercial market, office buildings, retail spaces, industrial properties. I worked for a firm that paid me salary plus commission. The salary was $41,000. The commission was where the real money lived. I closed my first major deal at 29, a warehouse lease in the industrial district. My cut was $63,000. I didn't tell anyone. I put it in a separate account. I kept working. By the time I married my ex-husband, I had $312,000 saved. I didn't tell him. He made good money. He assumed I made decent money. He never asked for specifics. I never offered them. After the divorce, I went independent. I left the firm and started working as a solo agent. Higher risk, higher reward. I networked. I cold called. I built relationships with property developers and investment groups. I closed a strip mall lease in my second year independent. Commission was $97,000. I closed an office complex lease 6 months later. $142,000. I was good at this. I understood what clients needed before they articulated it. I could read a property and see its potential. I could negotiate terms that made everyone feel like they had won. By the time my ex-husband filed for increased custody, I had just under $900,000 in assets. I still drove a 7-year-old sedan. I still lived in the same 3-bedroom house I had bought during the marriage. My family assumed I was doing okay. They had no idea I was doing better than okay. I kept it private because I had learned early that money made people treat you differently. My mother's friends, who had always been polite but distant, suddenly wanted to have coffee when Caroline married her surgeon husband. My uncle, who had barely spoken to me at family events, started asking Caroline's husband for investment advice. Money changed how people saw you. I didn't want to be seen differently. I wanted to be left alone to do my work and raise my son. So I stayed quiet, I drove the old car, I wore clothes from department stores. I let my family assume I was getting by on child support and modest commissions. It was easier that way. But I wasn't just saving money. I was documenting everything. Every missed pickup. Every late drop-off. Every time my ex-husband canceled a weekend visit. Every conversation where he complained about child support while posting photos of his new boat on social media. I had a folder on my laptop labeled school records. Inside were subfolders. One was actually school records. The other was labeled financial and contained spreadsheets tracking every custody-related expense, every support payment, every deviation from the court order. Patricia had told me early on that family court cases were won with documentation. I documented everything. The close calls started about 8 months before the final hearing. My mother came to visit one Saturday. She let herself in with the key I had given her for emergencies. I was at the kitchen table with my laptop reviewing a contract for a new property listing. She asked what I was working on. I closed the laptop. I told her it was just work stuff. She said it was Saturday. I said clients don't care what day it is. She looked around the kitchen. She asked if I had thought about updating the countertops. I said I hadn't. She said Caroline had just redone her kitchen. Granite countertops, new appliances, it looked beautiful. I said that sounded nice. She asked if I could afford something like that. I told her I was happy with my kitchen the way it was. She gave me that look. The one that said she was trying to be supportive, but really she was worried I was struggling. I offered her coffee. She accepted. We talked about my son's school. About the weather, she left an hour later. I opened my laptop. The contract was for a property lease worth $6.2 million over 5 years. My commission would be $84,000. I signed it and sent it back to the client. 3 months before the hearing, my sister hosted a birthday party for her daughter. My whole family was there. Aunts, uncles, cousins. My son played with the other kids in the backyard. I stood in the kitchen with my mother and Caroline. My brother-in-law was grilling on the patio. Caroline was talking about their summer vacation plans, 2 weeks in Europe. She had the whole itinerary planned. My mother asked if I had any vacation plans. I said probably not. She said it would be good for my son to travel. That experiences were important. I agreed. Caroline's husband walked in and joined the conversation. He asked how work was going. I said it was going well. He said that was good. That it must be hard being a single mother and working full-time. I said I managed. He asked what kind of properties I was working with these days. I said mostly commercial leases. He nodded. He said he had a friend who did residential real estate, that it was tough market. I said commercial was different. He asked if I ever thought about getting a more stable job, something with benefits and a regular salary. My mother jumped in. She said that was a good point. That stability was important, especially with a child. I looked at my brother-in-law. I asked him why he thought I needed more stability. He backtracked. He said he didn't mean it like that. Just that real estate could be unpredictable. I smiled. I told him I appreciated the concern, but I was doing fine. Caroline changed the subject. I went outside to check on my son. He was playing tag with his cousins. He looked happy. I stood on the patio and breathed. My phone buzzed. A client had accepted my proposal for a new lease agreement. The property was a medical office complex. My commission would be $106,000. I put my phone away. I went back inside and ate birthday cake. 6 weeks before the hearing, my mother invited me to lunch, just the two of us. She said she wanted to talk. I met her at a restaurant near her house. She ordered a salad. I ordered soup. She asked how I was really doing. I said I was fine. She said I always said that. I asked what she wanted me to say. She said she was worried about me. That the custody fight was taking a toll, that I seemed stressed. I told her I was handling it. She asked if I had enough money for a good attorney. I said yes. She asked if I was sure, because she and my father could help if I needed it. I thanked her. I told her I didn't need help. She looked at me for a long time. Then she asked if I had thought about settling with my ex-husband, just agreeing to whatever he wanted so we could all move on. I set down my spoon. I asked her if she was serious. She said she was just trying to help. That maybe I was being too stubborn, that sometimes it was better to compromise. I told her this wasn't about stubbornness. She said she knew I was angry, that I had every right to be, but my son needed both parents. I told her my son had both parents. She said that wasn't what she meant. I knew exactly what she meant. She thought I was the problem. She thought if I just gave in, if I just let my ex-husband have what he wanted, everything would be easier. I told her I had to get back to work. She said we hadn't finished eating. I said I had lost my appetite. I left $20 on the table and walked out. She called me twice that afternoon. I didn't answer. Patricia called that evening. She said the final hearing date had been confirmed. September 14th. I marked it on my calendar. I asked if she was ready. She said she was. She asked if I was. I told her I had been ready for 18 months. 2 weeks before the hearing, I had a meeting with my financial advisor. His name was Robert Chen. I had been working with him for 2 years. He managed my investment portfolio. I sat in his office and reviewed the quarterly statements. I had just over $1.1 million in liquid assets. Real estate holdings brought the total to $1.4 million. Robert asked if I wanted to make any changes to the allocation. I said no. He asked if the custody situation had been resolved. I told him it would be resolved soon. He said if I needed documentation of my financial stability for court purposes, he could provide certified statements. I thanked him. I told him I would let him know. He said the portfolio was performing well, that if I maintained my current trajectory, I would have close to $2 million in assets within 3 years. I said that sounded good. He asked if I had updated my estate planning documents. I said not recently. He said I should consider it, especially with the custody situation. I told him I would think about it. We shook hands. I left his office and sat in my car. My phone rang. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail. She wanted to know if I was coming to Sunday dinner that weekend. I texted her that I couldn't make it. She texted back asking if everything was okay. I said yes. She said she felt like we had left things badly at lunch. I didn't respond. I drove to my son's school and picked him up from soccer practice. He got in the car and asked what was for dinner. I said whatever he wanted. He said tacos. We went home and made tacos. The week before the hearing, Patricia called me into her office. She had prepared a binder with all the documentation we would be presenting. Custody logs, school records, medical records, financial statements showing my ex-husband's income versus his claimed inability to maintain the current support arrangement. She had tabs for everything. She walked me through what to expect. The judge would likely ask me direct questions. I needed to stay calm. Answer honestly. Not volunteer information beyond what was asked. Patricia asked if I was nervous. I said no. She said I should be at least a little nervous. I told her I had been waiting for this for 18 months. She smiled. She said she could tell. She asked about the recordings. I said I had them ready. She said we would only use them if we needed to, that they were our nuclear option. I asked what she thought the chances were that we would need them. She said it depended on how confident my ex-husband's attorney was. If he pushed hard on the alienation narrative, we would push back harder. I said good. She said she wanted to be clear about something. Once we played those recordings, there was no going back. My ex-husband would know that my son had been recording him. That could damage their relationship permanently. I told her the relationship was already damaged. She said I needed to be sure. I looked at her. I said I was sure. She closed the binder. She said we were ready. 3 days before the hearing, my sister called. She said Mom was upset, that I had been avoiding the family. I told Caroline I had been busy. She said we were all busy. That wasn't an excuse. I asked her what she wanted. She said she wanted me to stop being so difficult, that this whole custody thing had been dragging on for over a year and maybe it was time to just let it go. I asked her if she knew what my ex-husband had said about my son. She said she didn't know the details and she didn't need to, that whatever had happened, I was still making it harder than it needed to be. I told her she had no idea what she was talking about. She said she knew I was angry. I told her I wasn't angry. I was protecting my child. She said that was exactly what she meant, that I was so focused on fighting that I wasn't thinking about what was best for my son. I hung up. She called back. I didn't answer. She texted me. I didn't respond. I turned off my phone and sat on my couch. My son was at a friend's house for a playdate. The house was quiet. I had built something none of them could see. I had documented everything. I had saved more money than most of them would see in a lifetime. I had hired the best attorney I could find. I had prepared for this moment for 18 months, and my family still thought I was the problem. They still thought I should compromise. They still thought I was being difficult. I turned my phone back on. I had 7 missed calls, 3 from my mother, 2 from Caroline, 2 from my aunt. I deleted all the notifications. I called Patricia. I told her I was ready. She said she knew. She said she would see me Monday morning. I said I would be there. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I got up at 2 in the morning and went to the kitchen. I made tea. I sat at the table with my laptop and reviewed everything one more time. The custody logs, the financial records, the recordings. I had listened to them so many times I had them memorized. My ex-husband's voice saying our son was a mistake, saying he regretted everything, saying the custody fight was about reducing child support, not about being a father. I closed the laptop. I looked around my kitchen. The countertops my mother thought I should replace. The appliances that worked perfectly fine. The house I had bought with my own money and maintained with my own income while my family assumed I was barely scraping by. I had let them assume it because it was easier, because I didn't need them to know, but after tomorrow, some things would be different. Not everything. I would still drive the same car. I would still live in the same house, but my son would be safe. The custody arrangement would protect him. That was all that mattered. I finished my tea. I went back to bed. I still didn't sleep, but I was ready. Everything I had built was about to be tested in front of 43 people who had absolutely no idea it existed. I walked into the courthouse the next morning and signed in at the security desk. Patricia was waiting in the hallway outside the courtroom. She had the binder under one arm and her briefcase in the other hand. She asked if I was ready. I nodded. We went inside. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wooden benches, fluorescent lights, a bailiff standing near the judge's bench. My ex-husband was already there with his attorney. He looked at me once and then looked away. Patricia and I sat at our table. She opened the binder. She arranged the documents in front of her. The judge walked in. We stood. The bailiff announced the case. We sat. I want to know if you would have said what I said next, because I still think about it. The hearing proceeded exactly as Patricia had outlined. My ex-husband's attorney presented his case first, the alienation narrative. The claims that I was uncooperative, the timeline of communications I had allegedly ignored. He spoke for 23 minutes. Patricia took notes. When he finished, she stood and approached the bench. She said we had evidence. The judge asked what kind. Patricia explained about the recordings. My ex-husband's attorney objected. The judge asked questions. Patricia answered. The judge said she would allow a sample. I opened the tablet. I played the first file. My ex-husband's voice filled the courtroom. Your child is a mistake I regret. The judge's expression changed. She asked for more. I played the second file, then the third. The one where my ex-husband admitted the custody fight was about reducing child support, not about wanting more time with his son, just about money. The judge modified the custody order immediately, supervised visitation only, psychological evaluation required, child support unchanged. My ex-husband stood up. He raised his voice. The bailiff escorted him out. His attorney followed. The judge asked if my son was safe. I said yes. She ordered a child welfare check anyway. Then she closed the file and told me I was free to go. Patricia and I walked to the parking lot. I sat in my car. I called my son. I told him it was over. He asked what was for dinner. I told him whatever he wanted. I drove home. I made dinner. We ate together. He went to bed early. I sat on the couch with my laptop. I had 3 emails from clients. I answered them. Then I opened a new folder and labeled it Next Steps. My mother called the following afternoon. She wanted to know what had happened at the hearing. I gave her the basic outline. The judge had modified custody. My ex-husband would have supervised visits only. My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she asked if that was really necessary. I asked her what she meant. She said my ex-husband was still my son's father, that this seemed extreme. I told her the judge had made the decision based on evidence. She asked what evidence. I told her recordings. She asked what kind of recordings. I said conversations my son had recorded at his father's house. My mother's voice changed. She asked if I had told my son to record his father. I said no. She asked how long this had been going on. I said 6 months. She was quiet again. Then she said she didn't understand why I hadn't talked to her about this. I told her there was nothing to talk about. She said family was supposed to support each other. I told her I had the support I needed. She asked if I meant my attorney. I said yes. She said that wasn't the same thing. I told her I had to go. She said we needed to talk about this properly. I said there was nothing left to discuss. I hung up. 3 days later, Caroline called. She said Mom was upset, that I had shut everyone out, that the family was worried about me. I asked what they were worried about. She said I was being vindictive, that the custody modification was too harsh, that I was using my son to punish my ex-husband. I asked her if she had heard the recordings. She said no. I asked her if she knew what my ex-husband had said about my son. She said she didn't need to know the details, that whatever had happened, there were better ways to handle it than humiliating him in court. I told her he humiliated himself. She said I was being unreasonable. I asked her if she thought calling a child a mistake was reasonable. She said she was sure he didn't mean it that way. I told her he meant it exactly that way. She said I was twisting things. I told her I had the recordings. She could listen to them herself if she wanted. She said she didn't want to. She just wanted me to think about what I was doing to the family. I asked what I was doing to the family. She said I was creating drama, that I was making everything about me. That mom was stressed and dad was upset and everyone was walking on eggshells because of me. I told her that wasn't my problem. She said it was my problem because I was part of this family. I told her I would talk to her later. She said I always did that, just shut down and walked away. I said I wasn't walking away. I just had nothing more to say. I hung up. My aunt called the next week. She said my mother had asked her to reach out, that maybe I would talk to her since we had always gotten along. I said I was fine. She said my mother was really hurt, that I had cut her out. I told her I hadn't cut anyone out. I had just been dealing with a custody situation. She said she understood that. But now it was over. And maybe it was time to mend some bridges. I asked what bridges needed mending. She said my mother felt like I didn't value her opinion, that I had made major decisions without consulting her. I told her those decisions were about my son, not about my mother. She said mothers always worried about their children, that my mother just wanted to be involved. I told her my mother was welcome to be involved in things that concerned her. My custody arrangement with my ex-husband was not one of those things. My aunt sighed. She said I was being stubborn. I told her I was being clear. She said there was a difference between being clear and being cold. I asked her if she had anything else to say. She said she hoped I would think about what she said. I told her I would. I hung up. I didn't think about it. 2 weeks after the hearing, my mother showed up at my house unannounced. I was working at the kitchen table. My son was at school. She knocked on the door. I opened it. She asked if she could come in. I stepped aside. She walked into the kitchen and looked around. She said we needed to talk. I asked about what. She said about the family, about how I was treating everyone. I told her I wasn't treating anyone any particular way. She said that was the problem, that I had shut everyone out, that I wouldn't return calls, that I was avoiding family gatherings. I told her I had been busy. She said I was always busy. I asked her what she wanted from me. She said she wanted me to stop being so angry. I told her I wasn't angry. She said I clearly was. I asked her why she thought that. She said because of how I was acting, because of what I had done to my ex-husband. I set down my pen. I looked at her. I asked her if she thought my ex-husband calling our son a mistake was acceptable. She said she was sure there was context. I told her there was context. The context was that he said it multiple times over 6 months. She said people said things they didn't mean when they were upset. I asked her if she thought my son should have to spend time with someone who regretted his existence. She said that wasn't fair. I asked what wasn't fair. She said I was making it sound worse than it was. I told her I had the recordings. I could play them for her right now if she wanted. She said she didn't want to hear them. I asked why not. She said because it would just make things worse. I asked her how it could be worse. She didn't answer. My mother looked at me for a long time. Then she said she thought I was making a mistake, that I was letting my anger control me, that I was damaging my son's relationship with his father. I told her my son's relationship with his father was already damaged. She asked how I knew that. I told her because my son had told me, because my son had been so hurt by what his father said that he recorded it for 6 months hoping someone would believe him. My mother shook her head. She said children didn't understand these things, that they needed guidance. I asked her what kind of guidance. She said I should encourage my son to forgive his father, to give him another chance. I told her my son would make his own decisions about his father when he was old enough. Right now, my job was to protect him. She said I was being overprotective. I asked her if she would say that if she heard the recordings. She said she didn't need to hear them. I told her then we had nothing to talk about. She stood up. She said I was pushing everyone away. That one day I would regret it. I told her I would take that risk. She walked to the door. She turned back and said she hoped I knew what I was doing. I told her I did. She left. Caroline called that evening. She said Mom had come home crying. I didn't respond. She said I had really hurt her. I asked what I had done. She said I had been cold, dismissive, that I had offered to play those recordings just to upset her. I told Caroline that wasn't why I offered. I offered because Mom kept saying there must be context, that my ex-husband didn't mean what he said. I wanted her to hear that he did mean it. Caroline said that was cruel. I asked her what was cruel. She said making Mom listen to something that would upset her. I told her I hadn't made Mom do anything. I had offered. She had declined. Caroline said I knew Mom would decline, that I had put her in an impossible position. I asked what position. Caroline said I had forced her to choose between believing me and staying neutral. I told Caroline there was nothing neutral about telling me I was being vindictive. Caroline was quiet. Then she said she didn't say that. I told her she said it 3 days after the hearing. She said she was just trying to give me perspective. I told her I didn't need perspective. I needed my family to trust that I knew what was best for my son. She said she did trust me. I asked her if she was sure. She said she was, but she also thought maybe I was too close to the situation, that maybe I couldn't see clearly. I told her I could see perfectly clearly. She said she was just worried about me. I told her not to be. I hung up. The following Sunday was my nephew's birthday. Caroline was hosting a party. My mother called and asked if I was coming. I said I wasn't sure. She said the whole family would be there. I said I would think about it. She said it would mean a lot to Caroline. I told her I would let her know. I didn't let her know. I didn't go. Caroline texted me Monday morning. She said she was disappointed that my nephew had asked where I was. I texted back that something had come up. She asked what. I didn't respond. She called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. She said I was being childish, that I was punishing the whole family for something that had nothing to do with them. I deleted the voicemail. My father called 2 days later. He rarely called. He said Mom had asked him to talk to me. I asked what she wanted him to say. He said she was worried, that she felt like she was losing me. I told him she wasn't losing me. He said it felt that way to her, that I wasn't coming to family events, that I wasn't returning calls. I told him I had been busy. He said he understood. But he also said family was important. I agreed. He asked if I would come to Sunday dinner that weekend. I said I would think about it. He said it would make Mom happy. I told him I would try. He said that was all he was asking. We hung up. I didn't go to Sunday dinner. 3 weeks after the hearing, I got an email from my ex-husband's attorney. It was a formal notice. They were appealing the custody decision. Patricia had warned me this would happen. I forwarded the email to her. She called me an hour later. She said the appeal would take months. That in the meantime, the current order stood. I asked what the chances were that they would win. She said minimal. The recordings were damning. The judge's decision was well supported. Unless they could prove the recordings were fabricated or illegally obtained, the appeal wouldn't change anything. I asked if there was anything I needed to do. She said no, just continue documenting everything. I told her I would. We hung up. I opened my calendar. I had a property showing at 2, a contract review at 4, dinner with my son at 6. I closed my laptop. I went to work. Sunday dinner happened every week at my parents' house. I had been avoiding it for a month. My mother had stopped calling to invite me. Caroline had stopped texting. My aunt had sent one message asking if I was okay. I hadn't responded. I knew they were talking about me. I knew they thought I was being difficult. I didn't care. I had spent 18 months fighting for my son. I had one. If my family couldn't understand that, it wasn't my responsibility to make them understand. But then my son asked why we weren't going to grandma's anymore. I told him we had been busy. He said his cousins kept asking him. I asked what they were asking. He said they wanted to know if we were mad at everyone. I told him we weren't mad. He looked at me. He said it seemed like we were. I asked him if he wanted to go to Sunday dinner. He said he didn't know. I asked what that meant. He said he liked seeing his cousins. But he didn't like when everyone asked him questions about Dad. I told him no one would ask him questions. He said they always did. I told him if anyone asked, he could tell them it wasn't their business. He said okay. Then he asked if I was going. I told him I would go if he wanted to. He said he wanted to. I said okay. I texted my mother. I told her we would be there Sunday. She texted back immediately. She said she was glad. I didn't respond. Sunday came. I drove to my parents' house with my son. Caroline's car was already in the driveway, so was my aunt's. I parked on the street. My son and I walked to the front door. My mother opened it before I knocked. She hugged my son. She looked at me. She said she was glad I came. I said thank you for having us. We went inside. Caroline was in the living room with her husband and kids. My aunt was in the kitchen with my mother. My father was outside on the patio. Everyone said hello. Everyone was polite. No one mentioned the custody hearing. No one mentioned the recordings. No one mentioned the fact that I hadn't been there in over a month. We ate dinner. We made small talk. My son played with his cousins. I helped clear the table. Caroline came into the kitchen while I was washing dishes. She stood next to me. She said she was glad I came. I said my son wanted to see his cousins. She said she understood. Then she said Mom had been really upset. I told her I knew. She asked if I was still mad at everyone. I told her I wasn't mad. She said it felt like I was. I asked her why. She said because I had pulled away. I told her I had been dealing with things. She said she knew. But now it was over. I looked at her. I asked if she thought it was over. She said the custody hearing was done. I told her the custody hearing was one part. She asked what the other parts were. I didn't answer. I finished the dishes. I dried my hands. I went outside to find my son. We left an hour later. My mother walked us to the door. She said she hoped we would come back next week. I said we would see. She asked if everything was okay. I told her everything was fine. She said I seemed distant. I told her I was just tired. She said she understood. She hugged my son. She looked at me. She said she loved me. I told her I loved her too. We got in the car. My son asked if I was okay. I said yes. He said I seemed quiet. I told him I was just thinking. He asked about what. I told him nothing important. We drove home. I made him a snack. He did his homework. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I had an email from Patricia. The appeal hearing had been scheduled for January, 4 months away. I marked it on my calendar. Then I opened a new document. I started typing. I had made a decision. I had been putting it off for 3 weeks, but sitting at that Sunday dinner, watching my family pretend everything was normal while they silently judged every choice I had made, I realized I was done pretending too. I called Patricia. She answered on the second ring. I told her to file everything. She asked if I was sure. I told her I had never been more sure of anything. She said she would have it ready by end of week. I thanked her. We hung up. I looked at my son doing his homework at the kitchen table. He looked up and smiled at me. I smiled back. Everything I had built was about to become visible, and I was ready. The next Sunday dinner was different. I walked in knowing what was coming. My mother had called earlier in the week and specifically asked me to be there. She said it was important. She said the whole family needed to talk. I asked about what. She said about moving forward, about healing. I told her I would be there. I didn't tell her I had my own agenda. My son stayed with a friend that afternoon. I told him I had some family things to handle. He asked if it was about Dad. I told him no. He said okay. I dropped him off and drove to my parents' house. Every car was there. Caroline, my aunt and uncle. Even my father's brother, who usually skipped these dinners. I parked and sat in my car for a moment. Then I picked up the folder from the passenger seat. I had printed everything: bank statements, investment portfolios, property deeds. Patricia had advised against this. She said there was no legal requirement to disclose my finances to my family. I told her this wasn't about legal requirements. She asked what it was about then. I told her it was about being done. She said she understood. I walked to the front door. My mother opened it. She looked surprised to see me early. I told her I wanted to help set up. She said that was thoughtful. I went inside. Everyone gathered in the dining room at 5. My mother had made a roast. Caroline brought a salad. My aunt brought wine. We sat down. My father said grace. We started eating. Small talk, weather, work, my nephew's soccer team. Then my mother cleared her throat. She said she wanted to talk about something. Everyone looked at her. She said the past few months had been difficult. That there had been tension in the family. That she thought it was time we addressed it. Caroline nodded. My aunt murmured agreement. My mother looked at me. She said she knew I had been going through a hard time with the custody situation, that she understood I was stressed, but she thought maybe it was time to let go of some of the anger, to try to move forward as a family. I set down my fork. I asked what she meant by moving forward. She said she meant putting the past behind us. Being supportive of each other. I asked if she felt I hadn't been supportive. She said she felt I had been distant, closed off, that I wouldn't let anyone help me. Caroline jumped in. She said I had always been independent, but sometimes I took it too far. My uncle said I reminded him of my father. Stubborn, my father didn't react. I looked around the table. Every person there had an opinion about how I should handle my life, how I should feel, how I should act. None of them knew anything. I picked up the folder I had set beside my chair. I placed it on the table. My mother asked what it was. I told her it was context. Caroline looked at the folder. She asked what I meant. I told her I meant that everyone at this table had spent the last 4 years making assumptions about my life, about my finances, about my ability to provide for my son. I told them those assumptions were wrong. My mother said she had never made assumptions. I asked her if she remembered offering to help pay for my attorney. She said she was just trying to be supportive. I told her I appreciated the offer, but I didn't need it. She said she knew that now. I asked her if she did. She looked confused. I opened the folder. I pulled out the first document. It was my most recent financial statement. I set it in the center of the table. My mother leaned forward to look at it. Her expression changed. Caroline asked what it was. I told her it was my investment portfolio. Current value, $1.4 million. The table went completely silent. My aunt picked up the paper. She looked at the numbers. She set it down. She looked at me. My mother asked if this was real. I told her it was. She asked how. I told her I had been working. She said she knew I worked. I told her she didn't know. None of them did. Caroline asked what I meant. I told her I meant I had been building a commercial real estate portfolio for the last 8 years. That I had been working independently for 6 years. That my average annual income for the last 3 years had been $270,000. My brother-in-law leaned back in his chair. He didn't say anything. My uncle asked if I was serious. I told him I was completely serious. My mother asked why I hadn't told anyone. I asked her why I would have. She didn't answer. If you're still here, hit like. I need to know you saw that. I pulled out the second document. Property deeds. I owned 3 rental properties. Small commercial spaces I had purchased over the last 5 years. Total value, $890,000. Current equity after mortgages, $412,000. I set the pages on the table. Caroline picked one up. She read it. She looked at me. She asked when I bought these. I told her the dates. 2019, 2021, 2023. She asked how I afforded them. I told her I saved. I invested. I worked. She said she had no idea. I told her that was the point. My mother asked what I meant. I told her I meant I had kept my financial situation private because I didn't want to deal with opinions, with questions, with assumptions about what I should do with my money. My aunt said she would never have judged me. I looked at her. I reminded her of the conversation we had 6 years ago when she suggested I get a teaching job because real estate was too unstable. She looked down at her plate. My uncle asked why I was telling them this now. I told him because I was tired of being treated like I needed help, like I was struggling, like I was making poor decisions. He said no one thought that. I asked him if he remembered offering to introduce me to his divorced colleague, the one with a stable income. He said he was just trying to be nice. I told him I didn't need nice. I needed respect. Caroline said this was a lot to process. I told her I understood. But it needed to be said. She asked if I was angry at everyone. I told her I wasn't angry. I was just done pretending. My mother asked what I was pretending. I told her I was pretending that I needed guidance, that I needed advice on how to live my life, that I needed anyone at this table to tell me what was best for my son. She said she never meant to make me feel that way. I told her intentions didn't matter. Impact did. My father spoke for the first time. He asked if I was happy. I looked at him. I told him I was. He asked if my son was happy. I told him yes. He said that was all that mattered then. My mother looked at him. She said it wasn't that simple. He said it seemed pretty simple to him. I had been supporting myself and my son. I had been doing well, better than well. What was complicated about that? My mother said I should have told them. He asked why. She said because they were family. He said family didn't mean she was entitled to know everything. My mother looked hurt. My father reached over and put his hand on hers. He told her he loved her. But she needed to let this go. She asked what she was supposed to let go. He said her need to be involved in every decision. She said she just wanted to help. He said I didn't need help. Caroline asked what this meant for us. I asked what she meant. She said the family. Were we okay? I told her that depended. She asked on what? I told her on whether everyone could accept that I knew what I was doing. That I didn't need input on my custody arrangement, or my career, or my finances. That I was an adult who had been handling my own life successfully for years. She said she could accept that. My aunt said she could too. My uncle nodded. My mother didn't say anything. I looked at her. I asked if she understood. She said she heard me. I asked if that was the same thing. She said she didn't know. She said she felt like I was shutting her out. I told her I wasn't shutting her out. I was establishing boundaries. She asked what the difference was. I told her shutting her out would mean I wouldn't be here. Boundaries meant I was here. But certain topics were not open for discussion. She asked what topics. I told her my son's relationship with his father, my financial decisions, my career choices. She asked what was left. I told her everything else. Holidays, birthdays, Sunday dinners where we talked about normal things and didn't treat me like a project that needed fixing. My mother started crying, not loud. Just tears running down her face. My father handed her a napkin. Caroline asked if I was serious about all of this. I told her I had never been more serious. She asked if I was really worth over $1 million. I told her yes. She asked why I never said anything. I told her because it wasn't relevant. She said it seemed relevant. I asked how. She said because we could have celebrated with me. I told her I didn't need celebration. I needed to be left alone to do my work. She said that seemed lonely. I told her it wasn't. She said it seemed like I didn't trust them. I told her trust had nothing to do with it. Privacy was not the same as distrust. She said she didn't understand the difference. I told her she didn't have to. My brother-in-law asked what happened with the custody situation. I told him it was resolved. He asked what that meant. I told him my ex-husband had supervised visitation only, that he had to complete a psychological evaluation before that could be reconsidered, that the child's support remained unchanged. He asked if my ex-husband was okay with that. I told him my ex-husband had filed an appeal, but it wouldn't change anything. He asked how I knew. I told him because I had evidence. He asked what kind. I told him the kind that couldn't be disputed. My mother wiped her eyes. She asked if I hated them. I told her no. She asked if I was disappointed in them. I told her no. She asked what I felt then. I told her I felt tired. Tired of being underestimated. Tired of defending my choices. Tired of having to prove that I knew what I was doing. She said she never meant to make me feel that way. I told her it didn't matter what she meant. It mattered what happened. Caroline said she wanted to understand. I told her to ask questions then. She asked how I had built all of this without anyone knowing. I told her by working, by being strategic, by not talking about it. She asked if I had help. I told her I had professional help, a financial advisor, an attorney, an accountant. But no one in the family. She asked why not. I told her because I didn't want opinions, I wanted results. My uncle said that seemed cold. I asked him what was cold about it. He said family should support each other. I told him support didn't mean involvement. He said he didn't see the difference. I told him that was exactly the problem. My aunt asked what I wanted from them now. I told her I wanted them to stop treating me like I needed saving, to stop offering unsolicited advice, to stop assuming they knew better. She asked if I wanted them to just stay out of my life. I told her no. I wanted them to be in my life, but as family, not as consultants. She said she didn't know how to do that. I told her to start by asking instead of telling, by trusting instead of questioning, by assuming I had things handled unless I specifically asked for help. My mother said that was hard. I told her I knew, but it was necessary. She asked what would happen if she couldn't do it. I told her then we would have a problem. She asked what kind of problem. I told her the kind where I stopped coming to Sunday dinners, where I stopped returning calls, where I put up walls that were a lot harder to climb than the boundaries I was asking for now. She looked at my father. He didn't say anything. She looked back at me. She asked if I was threatening her. I told her no. I was telling her the truth. Caroline asked if I was going to tell everyone about the money. I asked who everyone was. She said friends, extended family. I told her no. She asked why not. I told her because it wasn't their business. She said it felt like a secret. I told her it was private. There was a difference. She said she still didn't understand why I kept it private. I told her because money changed how people saw you, because people who ignored you suddenly wanted to be close to you, because opportunities appeared that had nothing to do with genuine connection and everything to do with what you could provide. She said that seemed cynical. I told her it was realistic. My brother-in-law said he could understand that. Caroline looked at him. He said wealthy people dealt with that all the time, people wanting things, people making assumptions. It made sense to keep it private. Caroline said she would never use me for money. I told her I believed her, but I also didn't want to find out I was wrong. My father asked what I needed from him. I told him nothing. He said there had to be something. I told him I just needed him to keep doing what he was doing, not getting involved, letting me handle my own life. He said he could do that. I told him I knew. My mother asked why he got to be easy and she had to change. He told her because he had never tried to control our daughters. She said she wasn't controlling. He said she was trying to manage. She asked what the difference was. He said control was about power. Management was about fear. She was afraid I was making mistakes. So she tried to manage the situation. She said she just wanted to help. He said she needed to trust that I didn't need help unless I asked for it. She said that was hard. He said he knew, but she needed to do it anyway. My aunt said this had been a lot. I agreed. She said she needed time to process. I told her that was fine. She asked if we were okay. I told her we were. She said she was sorry if she had ever made me feel like I wasn't capable. I told her I appreciated that. My uncle said he was sorry too. I nodded. Caroline asked what happened now. I told her we finished dinner. We moved on. She asked if it was that simple. I told her it could be. She said she wasn't sure how. I told her by not making it complicated, by just accepting what I had told them and adjusting accordingly. She said she would try. I told her that was all I was asking. We finished dinner. The conversation moved to other things: my nephew's soccer tournament, my aunt's new car, my father's upcoming retirement plans, normal topics, safe topics. I stayed for another hour. Then I said I needed to pick up my son. My mother walked me to the door. She asked if we were okay. I told her we would be. She asked what she needed to do. I told her to respect my boundaries, to trust my decisions, to stop treating me like I needed guidance. She said she would try. I told her that was enough. She hugged me. I hugged her back. I left. I drove to pick up my son. He asked how dinner was. I told him it was interesting. He asked what that meant. I told him I would explain when he was older. He said okay. We went home. I made him a snack. He did his homework. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I had one more thing to say. I opened my email. I had been waiting for a specific message for 3 days. It had arrived that morning while I was at Sunday dinner. The subject line read "Final documents ready for review." I clicked it open. Patricia had attached everything: the trust documents, the education fund paperwork, the updated custody agreement with my ex-husband's appeal denial. The judge had ruled on the appeal 2 days earlier. I hadn't told my family. The appeal had been denied. The supervised visitation would remain in place indefinitely. My ex-husband would need to complete not just a psychological evaluation, but also a parenting course before any modification would be considered. The judge had included a note in her ruling. She had listened to all 83 recordings. Not just the 3 I had played in court. All of them. She had written that in her 22 years on the bench, she had rarely seen such clear evidence of parental unfitness. That my son's initiative in documenting his father's statements demonstrated remarkable emotional intelligence and self-preservation. That the child's best interest was unambiguously served by limiting contact with a parent who had repeatedly expressed regret over his existence. I read the ruling 3 times. Then I opened the second attachment, the trust fund. I had established it the week after the first custody hearing, $250,000 for my son's education, college, graduate school if he wanted it, trade school if he preferred, whatever he chose. The trust was irrevocable. I was the trustee until he turned 25, then it would transfer to him completely. Patricia had suggested I wait, that I didn't need to fund it so heavily right away. I told her I wanted it done. I wanted my son to know that whatever happened with his father, his future was secure. She had handled all the paperwork. The trust was filed. Legal. Complete. I closed my laptop. My son was in his room reading. I walked down the hall and knocked on his door. He said, "Come in." I opened it. He was on his bed with a book about space. He asked if everything was okay. I told him everything was fine. I asked if I could talk to him for a minute. He set down the book. I sat on the edge of his bed. I told him the judge had made a final decision about his dad. He asked what it meant. I told him it meant the arrangement we had now would stay the same, that his dad could only see him with supervision, that he wouldn't have to go to his dad's house anymore unless he wanted to. He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked if he was in trouble. I asked why he would think that. He said because of the recordings. Because he had recorded his dad without asking. I told him he wasn't in trouble. That what he did was brave. That he had protected himself the only way he knew how. He asked if his dad was mad. I told him I didn't know, but it didn't matter. He asked why. I told him because his dad's feelings were his dad's responsibility. Not his, he nodded. He asked if I was mad at him. I told him no, never. He asked if I loved him. I told him more than anything. He hugged me. I hugged him back. Then he picked up his book and kept reading. I stood up. I told him dinner would be ready in 30 minutes. He said okay. I closed his door. I went back to the kitchen. I opened my laptop again. I had one more email to send. I typed it out carefully. It was to my mother. I told her I appreciated her trying at dinner, that I knew the conversation had been difficult, that I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was just trying to establish clear boundaries so we could have a relationship that worked for both of us. I told her I loved her. I told her I would see her next Sunday if she wanted, but the topics I had outlined were not up for discussion. If she couldn't respect that, I would understand. But I wouldn't be able to keep coming to family dinners. I read it twice. Then I sent it. She responded 4 hours later. She said she understood, that she would try, that she loved me. I responded that I loved her too. That was enough. The following week, Caroline called. She said she had been thinking about our conversation at dinner. I asked what about it. She said she realized she had never really known me. I asked what she meant. She said she had always assumed she understood my life because she was my sister, because we grew up together, but she realized she had been making assumptions based on nothing. I told her that was accurate. She asked if I was still mad at her. I told her I wasn't mad. I had never been mad. I had just been tired of being underestimated. She asked what she could do differently. I told her she could ask questions instead of making statements. She could trust that I knew what I was doing unless I specifically said otherwise. She said she could do that. I told her I appreciated it. She asked if we could have lunch sometime, just the two of us. I said yes. We scheduled it for the following week. We met at a restaurant near her house. She asked me about my work, really asked. I told her about the properties I managed, about the clients I worked with, about the deals I closed. She listened. She asked intelligent questions. She didn't offer advice. She didn't suggest alternatives. She just listened. At the end of lunch, she said she was proud of me. I thanked her. She said she meant it, that she had no idea I had built so much. I told her it was okay that she didn't know. She said she wanted to know now. I told her I would tell her. We finished lunch. We hugged. We went our separate ways. My ex-husband's attorney sent one final email 3 weeks later. They were withdrawing the appeal. My ex-husband had completed the psychological evaluation. The psychologist had recommended continued supervised visitation and family therapy. My ex-husband had declined the therapy. His attorney wanted to know if I would consider modifying the arrangement anyway. Allow unsupervised visits. I forwarded the email to Patricia. She called me. She asked what I wanted to do. I told her no modification. The judge's order stood. Patricia asked if I was sure. I told her I was completely sure. She said she would inform the other attorney. I thanked her. She asked how I was doing. I told her I was good. She said I sounded different. I asked how. She said lighter. I told her I felt lighter. She said she was glad. We hung up. My son turned 9 in November. We had a party at our house. His friends from school, a few cousins, my parents, Caroline and her family, my aunt and uncle, normal birthday party, cake, games, presents. My ex-husband was not there. My son didn't ask about him. At one point, my mother asked if I had told my ex-husband about the party. I told her no. She asked why not. I told her because the custody order didn't require it. She started to say something. My father put his hand on her arm. She stopped. She looked at me. She said she understood. I told her thank you. We moved on. The party was good. My son was happy. That was all that mattered. I ran into my ex-husband's new wife at the grocery store in December. She was in the produce section. I saw her before she saw me. I could have left. I didn't. I walked past her. She looked up. She recognized me. She looked away, then she looked back. She said my name. I stopped. I asked how she was. She said she was fine. She asked how my son was. I told her he was good. She said she was glad. She asked if he ever asked about his dad. I told her sometimes. She asked what I told him. I told her I told him the truth, that his dad loved him but had some things to work on. She said that was kind. I told her it was honest. She said she had heard the recordings. I didn't respond. She said she didn't know. I asked what she didn't know. She said she didn't know my ex-husband felt that way. I told her now she did. She asked if I hated her. I told her no. I didn't think about her enough to hate her. She looked hurt. I didn't apologize. She asked if there was any way to fix this. I told her that wasn't my responsibility. She said she just wanted my son to have a relationship with his father. I told her my son would make that decision when he was ready. She said she understood. I told her I had to go. She said okay. I walked away. I finished my shopping. I went home. My financial advisor called in January. He said my portfolio had performed exceptionally well, that I was now sitting at 1.6 million in total assets. He asked if I wanted to make any changes. I told him no. He said I was on track to hit 2 million by end of next year. I told him that was good. He asked what my long-term goals were. I told him financial independence, the ability to work because I wanted to, not because I had to. He said I was almost there. I told him I knew. He asked if I had thought about retirement planning. I told him I was 37. He said it was never too early. I told him I would think about it. We hung up. I sat at my kitchen table and looked around. The same countertops my mother thought I should replace. The same appliances that worked perfectly fine. The same house I had bought with my own money during my marriage. I had built something here, not just financial security, but a life, a real life, for me and my son, without anyone's permission, without anyone's approval, just my own work and my own decisions. My son came home from school that afternoon. He dropped his backpack by the door. He asked what was for dinner. I told him I hadn't decided yet. He asked if we could order pizza. I asked if he had homework. He said yes. I told him to finish his homework first. Then we would order pizza. He said okay. He went to his room. I heard his door close. I opened my laptop. I had an email from a new client. Commercial property, downtown location. Potential lease value over 10 million. My commission would be significant. I read through the details. I responded. I said I was interested. We scheduled a meeting for the following week. I closed my laptop. My son came out of his room an hour later. He said he finished his homework. I asked if he checked his work. He said yes. I told him to show me. He brought me his math worksheet. I looked it over. Everything was correct. I told him good job. He smiled. I asked what kind of pizza he wanted. He said pepperoni. I ordered it. We ate dinner together. We watched a movie. He fell asleep on the couch. I carried him to bed. He was getting heavier, but I could still carry him. I stood in his doorway and watched him sleep. He looked peaceful. He was safe. He was happy. That was everything. I went to Sunday dinner the next week. My mother had made pot roast. Everyone was there. The conversation was normal. No one asked about my finances. No one offered advice I didn't request. Caroline asked about work. I told her about the new client. She said that sounded exciting. I said it was. My aunt asked about my son. I told her he was doing well in school. She said she was glad. My uncle talked about his golf game. My father talked about retirement plans, normal family dinner. At the end of the night, my mother walked me to the door. She asked if everything was okay. I told her everything was good. She said she was trying. I told her I could see that. She asked if it was enough. I told her it was. She hugged me. I hugged her back. I meant it. 3 months later, my ex-husband's attorney contacted Patricia one final time. My ex-husband wanted to relinquish all parental rights. He wanted to terminate child support obligations. He wanted out completely. Patricia called me. She explained what it meant. My son would legally have no father. My ex-husband would have no financial or custodial obligations, no rights to visitation, no claim to any decisions about my son's life. Patricia asked what I wanted to do. I told her I needed to talk to my son first. She said that was wise. I hung up. I waited until that evening. My son was doing homework at the kitchen table. I sat down next to him. I told him his dad's attorney had called. He looked up. I told him his dad wanted to give up his parental rights. He asked what that meant. I told him it meant his dad wouldn't be his dad anymore legally, that he wouldn't have to see him, that his dad wouldn't have any say in his life. He was quiet. Then he asked if that meant his dad didn't want him. I told him honestly, I didn't know what it meant about what his dad wanted, but I knew what it meant for him. It meant he was free. He asked if I would still be his mom. I told him always. He asked if I loved him. I told him more than anything in the world. He said okay then. I asked if he was sure. He said yes. I told him I would tell the attorney. He went back to his homework. I called Patricia. I told her to approve the termination. The paperwork was filed in April. The termination was finalized in May. My ex-husband signed away all parental rights. The child support was terminated. I didn't need it anyway. I had more than enough. My son took it quietly. He didn't cry. He didn't ask questions. One evening, he asked if he was allowed to be sad even though he was also relieved. I told him he was allowed to feel however he felt. He said okay. That was the last time we talked about it. He focused on school, on his friends, on soccer. He was happy. That was what mattered. I am still working, still closing deals, still building. My portfolio is worth 2.1 million now. I bought another property last month, a small office building, good location, solid tenants. I don't talk about it at Sunday dinners. My family doesn't ask. We have found an equilibrium. They respect my boundaries. I show up. We function. It is not perfect, but it works. My son is thriving. He is 10 now. He plays soccer. He gets good grades. He has friends. He asks about his father sometimes. I tell him the truth. His father made choices. Those choices had consequences. He nods. He understands. He is a remarkable kid. I am proud of him every single day. My mother and I have a better relationship now. She still worries, but she doesn't try to manage. She asks questions. She listens. She respects when I say a topic is closed. It took time, but we got there. Caroline and I have lunch once a month. We talk about real things, not surface things. She knows about my work now. She asks good questions. She celebrates my successes. It is the relationship I always wanted with my sister. My father told me last month that he was proud of me, that he always knew I would be fine. I told him thank you. He said he meant it. I do not regret playing those recordings in court. I do not regret establishing boundaries with my family. I do not regret any of it. Some people still think I was too harsh, that I should have given my ex-husband more chances, that I should have kept my financial situation private even from my own family. I understand their perspective. I just do not agree with it. I protected my son. I built a life. I established respect. Those were the right choices. I would make them again. My son asked me last week if I was happy. I told him yes. He asked what made me happy. I told him he did, and my work, and knowing that I built everything myself. He said that was cool. Then he asked what was for dinner. I told him whatever he wanted. He said tacos. We made tacos. We ate together. We watched television. It was a normal Tuesday. It was perfect. So did I go too far or not far enough? Tell me in the comments.